1 second. Done. All right. Let's see. Happy Sunday, everyone. This is Mindset Bytes with Miley Mindset Coach. And this is a platform which showcases leading entrepreneurs and gaining insight in how their inner workings of their mindset and how they convey it into their product or service. So if you guys are tuning in, #live with us, feel free to drop in the comments where you're tuning in from. If you're catching us on the replay, #replay. We have for today I have an awesome guest, and she is the founder of Masarap Lumpia, which is soul fusion Filipino or Filipino soul food. So if you guys haven't heard of that, she's going to educate us about it. And there's vegan and plant-based options, and so she's going to go through that as well. So please welcome Phyllis. Let me add her. Hey, Phyllis.
Hello.
All right. So everyone, this is Phyllis. Phyllis, again, is the founder, or the CEO, founder, operator of Masarap Lumpia. Did I say that right?
Yes, you said it right.
Okay.
Good job.
Right? The practice. And we do have some viewers, so guys, make sure you #live in the, MJ, hey MJ. All right. So Phyllis, for those that don't, Phyllis is also serving the Ventura County, but we'll talk a little bit later about where she's branching out to, because there's exciting avenues that she's going through. So I want to definitely touch base on that. But for the audience who doesn't know Phyllis, who are you and what makes Phyllis tick?
That's a loaded question. Hi, I'm Phyllis Masaya-Kerley. I live in the Oxnard, Port Hueneme area, which is in Ventura County, located directly north of LA. So it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive from LA. We are in a coastal city, and it's actually an area that's very heavily populated with Filipinos, or at least that's how I thought of it, because there are a ton of Filipinos here, because we have two bases. We have the CB base, and then we have Point Magoo. So we have that, and then we have a couple of hospitals in the area. So, with a lot of people in the medical field being Filipino, we have a huge Filipino population. But the interesting thing is we don't have a ton of Filipino restaurants. And for a long time, we didn't have any. So right now, I think the only Filipino restaurant we have is located inside of an island Pacific, and it's Phil House. And so I saw a need back in 2009. Actually, I had graduated from Cal State San Marcos. After having taken a long break, I wanted to go back, got my degree, graduated with a degree in art. And that is exactly when the economy crashed. So moving back to Ventura County from San Diego County was a challenge. It was a very difficult time in my life because my mom passed away 6 months before my graduation. And she was a huge pivotal, figure in my life for returning to school in the first place, because my mom was a huge advocate for education because she was unable to get an education herself in the Philippines. So she said I shouldn't, I should actually take the advantage of having the opportunity to go to school. And she said, do it before you get married and have kids, because not that it's impossible, it'll just make it more difficult. So December of 2008, she passed away, and I was devastated. I still to this day don't know how I graduated school. But like I said, so that following May, I graduated, the economy tanked, and I moved back to Ventura County, and there were no jobs. It was terrible, actually. And I I really just thought, okay, let me just apply to as many jobs as possible. I probably on average applied to 20, 30
Wow.
jobs a week at least. And this is in many different counties outside of, Ventura County, just to be able to work. And after 5 months of that, I was so desperate, and I was going to start having to pay student loans. And I just kept praying, like, God, what do I do? And then I would pray to my mom, like, what would she tell me if she were alive? And I went to sleep one night in November, and she came into my dream and she told me, do what comes naturally and what you're good at, something that doesn't feel like work. And I immediately woke up, literally popped out of my bed, and I was like, I'm making lumpia,
Yeah.
So I remember telling my sister, do you want to join me to do this? Because she at the time was unemployed. She had gotten laid off a few months before. And she said, sure. So that same week, we registered our business name and we got a business license. And we hit the ground running by doing all of our advertising and marketing on social media. So Twitter was a huge thing for us. And we did it also on Craigslist. We used anything to advertise on social media. And luckily it clicked. So at the time, a huge portion of our organic network, our natural network, was the Filipino community. My dad's organization, which is a nonprofit he founded in 1981 called Pililla Club of America. And we have members all over the United States, but the concentration of the members is in Southern California and then part of Northern California. And then another huge portion of our network was the underground hip hop community, which a lot of people don't know. Ventura County, specifically Oxnard and Ventura, are huge. We have a lot of people in the hip hop industry that are part of our community. Loot Pack, Anderson Pack is from here. A lot of figures are from hip hop started in this area. So we had local DJs buying from us. A lot of people in the hip hop community would, hire us for catering. And our biggest time to sell was whenever Pacquiao was fighting. So
That makes sense.
that's how it started. Yeah.
Like when your story about your mom being in your dreams, like gave me the chills right now, because I have those dreams where someone will come into my dream and then say, give me a message I needed to hear, whether or not I wanted to hear it. But that was, just want to let you know.
Yeah. No.
She's here, she's
yeah.
watching, and she's proud. So, I mean, that's an amazing, like you had that dream, and within the next 2 weeks, you had your business name, you're on the go. Like, a lot of people don't have that mindset to just like, okay, this is what we got to do. Let's go. Like, how do you process that? That's amazing.
I think a lot of it is my mom's influence. My mom grew up in a really tough time and tough area of the world. She grew up very poor and unnecessarily poor. And let me explain what that means. My mom actually had a father who came from a very affluent Filipino family. My grandfather's last name is Llanos, and he's from Cebu City. He was one of 11 children, and he stood to inherit a lot of money because his family was one of those traditional Spanish/Chinese families. And they actually owned part of a hacienda that was broken down into pieces.
Wow.
So he came from this affluent family, but he left to go to America when he was 18 years old. He wanted to escape, from what I understood, the infighting within the family. So that affected my mom and her growing up. So he lived in America most of his adult life, but he joined the military and he went back to the Philippines during World War II. He was in the U.S. Army, and he was part of the group that was going to transition the country into having their own democracy. So when he was there, he was probably in his late 30s, and then he was 40, and he met my grandmother there. They got married, and she was a child bride. She was about 17 years old. He was 40. So they had a huge age difference. But according to what I've heard, they were very much in love. But it was love at first sight for him. For my grandmother, it was a little bit different. She grew to love him. They had an awesome marriage, and she didn't grow up with a father. To have somebody love her and pay attention to her that way was great. So my grandfather had to come back to the States, and my grandmother was pregnant, and, you know, she was young. She didn't know what she was doing. There was a miscommunication. She ended up giving birth, and they still were in talks of him bringing her over, but he felt like she disobeyed something that they had talked about, and she was supposed to stay in her little town in Leyte, but she followed her family to Manila, and my grandfather didn't want that because he thought there was a lot of temptation. There was a lot of, you know, things that would change her mindset. So she actually grew up not knowing her father. So when she grew up in Manila, and she was always on survival mode. My mom used to talk about how people would get murdered and stabbed in front of them. And she was a very tough woman. You know, she, after graduating high school, and she was a valedictorian, and this is the kicker. My mom's mother was so poor, she couldn't afford books. So when she would tell her family, hey, I'm going to be valedictorian, they laughed at her. They thought she was lying. They thought it was a joke. So they go to the graduation, and she gets valedictorian, and her mother was in shock, and her grandmother started crying. And what my mom did was, and this is where the hustler in me comes from her. She used to do people's homework, and the trade-off was, give me your books, I'll study for both of us, I'll do my homework, and you can copy. So she would let them copy, but only maybe 80% of what she had right. So she always came up on top. So even though she didn't have the resources, she found a way to get those resources. And she shared so much of those stories that they were like embedded in me. So when she was finished with high school and she got a job as a secretary, she was so happy to be working in an office. It was a big deal. And she worked at the office, worked really hard, and she supported her whole family, which was her grandmother, her mother, a brother, and a cousin. She got laid off. And she was like, what am I going to do? And her mother said, well, you're always buying and selling things on the side. Just do that full time. Now you're your own boss. And then you have time to go find your father. So that's exactly what she did. She would go to other islands, and she did an import-export business. She'd go with goods from Manila, take them to another island, sell them there, buy things there, come back to Manila, and sell those things there. So I already had that in me from watching her my whole life. My mom actually didn't get a job until I was 8 years old. She did everything out of the home, cooking and selling food. She catered, and she wanted jewelry. So at some point she got a business license, and she went to the Diamond District in LA and said, I want to sell these diamonds. I need to get them as cheap as possible. And she would buy them wholesale, sell them to her friends, take the profit, and buy her own diamonds. So that's where I got that hustler mentality from, is from her.
I don't think you just got the hustler part, but you got the entrepreneurship, because everything she touched, she made it into some sort of business, even though it was also, you know, she was learning, and she still made, you know, there's a business right there, or entrepreneurship. So that's amazing. That's a huge testament to your mom. Yeah, amazing. So let's talk about food. So you talked about, you know, what she did in the kitchen. So let's talk about, let's see who's joining us. So Jen, hey Jen, Jay's on, hey Jay, Jennifer, hi. So let's talk about what for the Filipinos that aren't there, or Filipinos who are like me, who only know lumpia or chicken adobo. So talk about like what is fusion Filipino food or Filipino soul food? What is it as far as what you make?
When I think of Filipino soul food, I think of not the most glamorous dishes. I think about the dishes that you ate every day, that were comfort foods, that were made with love, and that tasted and felt like home. So that might be different for everybody. For me, when I think of the dishes that felt like home, it was always lumpia, pancit, chicken adobo, like palabok. Gosh, a plethora of dishes. My mom used to make tons of like cassava cake, bibingka, a number of things. And one of the things that she made, I don't make this because it's so labor intensive, but she was really well known for her tinapa. Tinapa is a smoked milk fish, and it's something that's not made easily here in America because it's, like I said, labor intensive, and also the smell because you're smoking it. So she found a way of making tinapa in our home without all that smoke and without it being so crazy and messy. And then she took it another step further, and she also made rellenong bangos. Bangos is milkfish that's very, very bony. And to make it relleno, you have to basically gut the fish and then cook the insides mixed with some vegetables. You take out all of the bones, which takes forever. I've watched her. And then you put it back into the basically like the casing of the fish. And to not break it and to sew it back so it looks like a whole fish again, and then to cook it in that process. It's a very beautiful presentation, but so hard to do. And that's what she was known for. She was so well known for it that, and this is before social media, people as far as San Francisco and San Jose would come to go get her fish.
Wow.
So, and I remember telling her, Mom, this takes so much time. Why are you only charging this much? She goes, I want to be able to sell this to anybody. I want it to be affordable. I want people to be able to eat well, even if they don't have a ton of money. And that always left an impact, that she wanted people to eat well, regardless of how much money they had. So I always thought about that. And I think my mom's been passed away since 2008. And whenever anybody hears my last name, they're like, oh, are you the daughter of Edita? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, how is she? And they would always ask about her food and her fish. Like, did you ever learn to make that, or they'd say, I heard you're catering. So that was the thing, with that when I say soul food, that's what I remember is the things that my mom made with love. Now, in terms of Filipino fusion, being in California and being a Filipino, we're affected by all the different foods that we had. We are lucky enough to have really great, authentic Mexican food. And so I created, along with my sister, some fusion dishes, and we came up with a chicken adobo burrito. And when we made that was so delicious, and it was popular. We also did chicken adobo sliders, and we did some kind of fusion. Like right now, one of the things I'm offering is a jalapeno popped lumpia. And so whenever I offer that, that's very popular. I also offer my take on chicken and waffles, and it is a coconut fried chicken with ube waffles. And I came up with it because I had created a recipe for chicken tenders. And I remember it was a hit. My sister is she's a great chef. So when she complimented me on this dish, I was like, oh, I'm onto something. So I said, why not do it on, bone-in chicken, like chicken thighs and legs? So I experimented. I had my husband and some other people taste it. They said it was delicious. And then I said, okay, I got the chicken part done. Let me go do the ube waffle. And then I put it together and I sold it. And the feedback on that was incredible. And so I've invented that, combo a few months ago. And every time I offer it, it sells out every single time. And it's not super expensive. It's still very affordable. And I always have an option of, you could buy it by the plate, or you could do a family pack. And the family pack is always more affordable per person, because I do want everybody to eat well. So that's where that whole thing is.
Nice. And then, is the vegan and plant-based options, is that in like certain dishes, or?
I wanted to offer vegan and plant-based dishes because in 2017, after my wedding, I was diagnosed with diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. And my best friend, she's a nurse and she lives in Indiana. And I was telling her, oh my God, I'm really stressed out. I'm getting this call from the doctor that I need to come back right away. I have a feeling she's going to tell me bad news. And she goes, well, why don't we talk about it? And she said, well, what do you think they're going to tell you? And I said, they're going to tell me I have diabetes. And I said that because diabetes runs on my dad's side of the family, but also on my mom's. But on my dad's side, it's like a lot of people have diabetes. My dad has diabetes. His mother died of diabetes. So I was like, it's just a matter of time for me. So she said, well, I recommend you watching the documentary, What the Health. So I did. And I made my husband watch it with me. And in the documentary, it was saying that although diabetes, people think about sugar when they relate to diabetes, it's really animal products that cause the diabetes. And it was really interesting how the change of how we ate in the early 1900s to now is so different in the American diet as we've progressed with, the way we farm and the way we process our food and the antibiotics that are in our livestock. And so that will affect our health as well. So I didn't want to just watch that film. I wanted to dive a little deeper. So I saw another film that related, which was Forks Over Knives, which had a lot of the backup, all of the backup information. I wasn't satisfied with that. I went and did some more, research. I do have a background in biology, and that nerd in me was really having a fun time researching. So I completely changed my diet after that day. Literally the day after, I decided, okay, I'm not going to eat meat. I'm not going to eat animal products to the best of my ability. And what can I do? And I had to retrain myself how to cook and how to think about food. And I started making all these dishes and experimenting. And at the time, it was great because I wasn't working full time. I took a break from working after my wedding. And I literally just created all these recipes, which is something I've always done. So I offered it through my business. At the time, people were not biting. They were not into it. There wasn't enough people who were plant-based vegan that were interested in any of my meal preps. But I started offering it last year, and there is a larger number of people who are interested in plant-based vegan dishes, even if they're not a plant-based 100% or a vegan 100%. And I decided I'm going to take all the Filipino food that I love, and I'm going to find a way to still enjoy it and veganize those dishes. So I just basically took things like jackfruit, tofu, mushrooms, even potatoes, and used them as substitutes for meat in the dishes that I loved. Because when you think about it, those dishes are not delicious unless you season them properly. Meat doesn't taste great on its own. So you have to zhuzh it up with spices. So when I turned plant-based vegan, I had never used as much spice in my life. And so I realized that's really the missing component, is people just haven't learned to season their food properly for their liking once they transition to that life. And I know that some people, even if they are, plant-based vegan, I want them to have other options other than like, burgers and fries or pizza. I wanted something that wasn't junk food, vegan food. And I wanted to have more of that home cooked feel. Well, it took off. And I actually have a few vegan clients that religiously order from me every week. And they don't just order like a plate or a dish, they actually order the family pack because they find it beneficial to have leftovers that they can return to all week long. They'll have salad, they'll have rice, they'll have potatoes, they'll have other things, but they have that one, pre-cooked meal from me that they can probably have 6, 7, 8 servings of at a very reasonable price.
Nice. I see a whole nother like outshoot like Phyllis spice blends going on for you.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
I was like, oh
I
no,
would
she's
love
already
that.
on something else.
That would be fantastic. I love
right?
that.
All right, so let's talk about, because you have kind of like, I don't know if it's an offshoot, but I know you've been working on your vegan ube dessert boxes. So I want to like talk about that. Like, how's that going? Because you're shipping them to Indiana and hopefully international, you said. So let's talk about that, because first, what is ube? Because if you're, I don't know what ube is. All I know is it's purple. And so let's talk about that. Tell us about that, because I thought that was interesting.
So growing up, everybody who's Filipino or has Filipino friends knows that ube is a staple during get-togethers, holidays, things like that. And what it is, it's a root vegetable. It's like a yam or a potato, but it's not a potato. And people say it's more like a yam. And some people even say it's not even really a yam. It's a funky looking yam.
Is it like taro?
A lot of people actually mistake it for taro or taro, but it's not the same thing. But I could see why people will say that, because taro has like a faint purple, and ube is a very bright purple. And the way people cook it, when I think of taro, I think of more like it's a root that you peel and you put in sinigang, and it's similar to a potato. And it's a flavor enhancement too for the sinigang. But with the ube, I think of more dessert. With the taro, it's more like savory.
Right.
So when you peel it and boil it, it has a flavor, but it's enhanced when you add sugar, cream, and butter. So a lot of people will have the ube halaya, and then I'm not even sure if I'm saying it right, but they usually cook it in a lot of condensed milk, butter, and sugar, and it becomes kind of like this thick, almost like a paste that people will use in desserts to flavor it. And even though it's purple, they'll add a little bit more purple just to make it even more vibrant. So I wanted to do a vegan version of that, but something that's not traditional Filipino. Like, everybody's so familiar with the ube chiffon cakes, which are very delicate, very beautiful, beautiful presentation. I am going to admit, I am not a baker. I'm not a baker. I'm very rustic with my food. It's very much home cooking. It's not what you would think of fine dining, but it's delicious. So when I was offering this, I was like, how can I make this so much more interesting and have people, want to try everything? And I was like, let me do a sampler. So I just decided to call it my vegan ube dessert box. So I included a vegan ube cake, a vegan ube donut, a vegan ube crinkle cookie, and then a vegan salted ube brownie. And I love salted caramel everything all day long. So when I stumbled upon this salted ube, I was like, oh, I'm onto something. Like, this is delicious. I accidentally put a little too much salt in this brownie that I was creating when I was, doing my experiments. And I told my husband, I said, taste this. And he was like, this is good. And I was like, okay, I'm not satisfied. Let me go ask a bunch of my girlfriends. So I gave some to my girlfriends to try, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never had anything like this. And then I did send it to a friend that was Filipina, and she's like, this is amazing. You need to sell this. So I started selling it, and slowly but surely it got really popular. And whenever I posted the vegan ube dessert box, they'd sell out. But it is a lot of work because it is 4 different desserts, and I have to have a certain number of orders for it to work. So I would kind of like collect all the people who were interested, and I would do it one Saturday a month. But it's gotten to the point where I need to offer it at least 2 Saturdays out of the month. And then people were contacting me saying, how do I get my hands on this? There are people from Georgia, from Florida, from Texas, from all over saying, I'm Filipino, I'm really wanting ube, and I happen to be vegan, or my husband is vegan. Like, how do I get my hands on it? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not shipping them. Like, let me figure it out. Right. So I was like, you know what? Let me just pull the trigger. I'm not going to know unless I just sent it out. So a week and a half ago, I sent my vegan salted ube brownies to my best friend, and she said they shipped well. They were moist and delicious. And I've since sent out 2 more shipments, and I have more shipments to send out this coming Friday. So I'm going to see how it's received and what the lengths of time it takes to get to a certain place. Like Indiana, it was 2 days, which from my post office, they said that's a miracle. It might not happen again in 2 days. So don't expect it. That's like a really, high bar to not really, So they're saying it's realistically more like 4 days. In California, it's probably going to be 1 to 2 days, depending on where I am sending it to. So I'm crossing my fingers that I'm going to get more national orders, and hopefully this becomes a thing. Because then, I can focus a little bit more on that, serving more of the plant-based community and sending this out to Filipinos and non-Filipinos all over the country.
Awesome. I love it. Because there's no preservatives in them, right? So to see really how that's amazing.
Yeah. So I have done a little experiment on my own where I left some pastries out on my counter in a airtight container, and they've lasted a little over a week. They might get a little dry, but overall they were still tasty and they were still in good condition. So I'm hoping that as long as it gets there while it's still in that state, they can freeze them, because I've actually frozen a few and they stay good for at least a month. So that's always an option. They could always freeze it right away.
Awesome. All right, so we have Ayensi, Elaine. Hi, guys. I'd love to hear what your guys' favorite Filipino dish is, or dessert. Share with us. Let us know if you have any questions for Phyllis, because we are getting close to, we're past the 30 minutes, but I have a couple more questions. And all right, so let's just go to the questions. If there's no questions out there in the audience, or just pop that in the comment section. And okay, so we talked about your food, and so you're just, is this still home based? You're still running your business out of your home, or do you have?
Yes.
That's amazing, because I've seen your social media, and you're sold out by Wednesday the following. You're always sold out. So how do you do that? Like, because all the entrepreneurs, whoever has a service or a product, they want to know, okay, that's like their struggle is to be sold out of whatever their product or service is. How do you do it continuously? Like, you're very consistent on, doing that.
I think what it is I've set up basically like a formula. So because I operate by pre-order, what I do is I create my schedule by Friday, and then I'll post it on Saturday or Sunday for the following week. I know that the algorithm on Facebook takes sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 days to catch up. So what I've done is I'll post it on my Instagram, Masarap Lumpia, and it will link to my Facebook business page. And then I have my personal Instagram, which is linked to my personal Facebook page. It immediately goes to those 4 places. And then on top of that, on Sunday night, maybe Monday morning, I'll actually post to the marketplace on Facebook. And that allows you to link it to all these other buy and sell groups that you're part of. I happen to be a part of, I think, 20 plus buy and sell groups. And this is before I really use this for my business, because I used to buy things like furniture and refinish that as a hobby. So I would be part of these buy and sell groups, and I started learning that I can do that for my food, but there was a tricky way of posting it. Mm-hmm. So I would post once and it would go to 20 places. And I started to learn the keywords to use and how to advertise. And I put as many pictures of clearly what I was making. At first, it was really hard. It was really hit or miss. There were times when I would only get a handful of orders, and then the following week I'd get 20. So it wasn't consistent. And then I said, let me just do this consistently, because that's what I can control. And hopefully over time, people will be like, oh, there's that lady that sells lumpia. And so I started thinking to myself, okay, what can I do? And I do a lot of market research. I do it early in the morning on my phone. I see what people are eating, what they're excited about, where they're going. And I was looking at hashtags. And so I was like, I'm going to create my hashtags. So I am the Lumpia Lady, 805. And I'm also the Lumpia dealer, 805. So that's what I have. I have it printed on my sweatshirts. So
nice.
Hopefully it'll catch on. And so I think over time, people are like, okay, I bought food from her. She's a friend of a friend. And part of it is the social media, and also friends of friends saying, hey, I tried this Filipino food. It was fantastic. And they're like, oh, that's so-and-so's friend. And so over time, I started friending all of my customers and friends of friends, and they started contacting me. And now people order from me more regularly. And I've built this friendship with them. So if I know that I'm posting something somebody might not see, but I know they'd be interested in, I'll send them a text and say, hey, by the way, did you see my post? This is what I'm offering. I remember you saying you were interested in my chicken adobo. And they're like, oh, really? Great. I'm glad you texted me because I didn't see that post. And then they'll say, okay, I want 3 orders of that. So that's the little things that I do. And also the nature with food is people are very last minute. The people who pre-plan, they're wonderful. They make my life easier. And that's why certain Wednesdays I'm always sold out. And then it's like later in the week, people will buy Friday's dinner or offering on Thursday. So I don't stress out. I know people are going to contact me. If I know I'm not getting all those orders, I will post it in my stories. I'll post it on my Instagram stories. I'll post it on my Facebook stories, and I post to my groups. But I also created a group called 805 Ventura County Foodies. My goal was not just to post my food, but for all these food vendors and businesses to post their offerings, because I want the community to know what everybody else is selling. There's a lot of talented home-based businesses, and we should all share the love. There might be something that I don't offer, but these other people offer. So I wanted to have that. And so my following for that group is growing. And I also opened up my Masarap Lumpia group specifically. And I noticed that more people see my posts there, and I get more engagement there than I even do on my Facebook business page. So those are just some of the tips of what I do.
Right. I mean, it sounds like you came up with a formula, and regardless if it worked, you're consistent and it's paying off. Hey, Abby just joined us. Hey, Abby. So in the comments, Phyllis will also put her how you can connect with her, but what different social media platforms you talked about? You're on Facebook, Instagram.
So my Instagram handle is at Masarap _Lumpia.
Mhm.
And then on Facebook, it's at Masarap Lumpia 805. And then my personal Facebook page that I add a bunch of followers and friends of friends is my Phyllis Masaya. It's actually Phyllis Llanos Masaya-Kerley. That's my married name. And people can add me and they'll also see my posts and some of my personal posts. And that's where I'm also getting a lot of engagement and getting a lot of sales that way. Never in my life did I think that that would be the way to go. I always thought, have it separate from my personal life, but it's actually been the biggest blessing. Very surprised. Had I known that it would work that well, I would have done it years ago. So, I'm just learning as I go and being a little bit more smart and analyzing things that I didn't analyze. I guess maybe for a few years, I didn't realize what it took to be a more serious business owner and entrepreneur. And now I'm taking everything more seriously and really analyzing those numbers and figuring out what works for me and what doesn't work.
Awesome. All right, last question for you. So 2021, what is your vision for your company?
My vision is that I will get much more plant-based and vegan following, and that I will start to really take off with my national shipping. I don't necessarily want it to all be just, desserts, but I like the direction of that just because I feel like a lot of people would benefit from me offering that. I know that when I turned plant-based vegan, finding Filipino anything that was vegan or plant-based was so hard. And at least now people have the incentive of knowing that when they're consuming my pastries and my sweet treats, that they're not consuming animal products and that we're, contributing something positive globally. So that's my hope. I'm not looking at making a certain amount of money or whatever. For me, it's really the passion of, doing what I love, which is food, and it not feeling like work. I enjoy what I do. So if I could just continue to financially contribute to my family and also, the security of our future, I'm going to be happy doing this for as long as I can. But I do want to get into other businesses. But I don't see myself doing, leaving food or not doing food anytime soon. So I love what I do, and I'll probably always talk about food. So the foodie in me is just, this is who I am. Phyllis the foodie. So yeah, that's where I see my business going in 2021.
Awesome. And don't forget, you have a whole, spice, whatever you want.
Thank you for that idea, by the way. Yeah.
But if there's no questions, Abby said ship it her way. She's all the way in Eastville. Mike's joining us. Yeah. So if you guys hashtag Phyllis, and if you guys need any information, she'll get to your comment. She'll also put in the comments all her social links. So if you're not already a friend, you'll be able to connect with her. But Phyllis is a powerhouse. If you guys are lucky enough to be one of her friends, she does awesome lives. They're very inspirational. So not only does her food fuel her soul, but her soul fuels the audience. So definitely catch her on her lives. And if there's no questions from the audience, I just want a big thank you for Phyllis. Your story about your mom and how the food, to me, your food is just really your vehicle to feed our souls. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I'm getting. But thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And again,
I appreciate it.
Phyllis will be able to look at the comments. If you guys have any questions or want some ube Yeah. And I can't wait to see what 2021 has in store for you. I know great things. But all right, you guys, we're going to have a say good night and thank you. And
Good night,
also post your
everyone.
favorite Filipino dish, because I think that's going to be one of the things. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. Good night. Thank you for having me.